On the subject. There's some light on the subject. Good to see everybody today.
Good to see you.
I'm going to begin with a poem. This is by Mary Oliver. And this is called Yes, No. Yes, No. How necessary is it to have opinions? I think the spotted trout lilies are satisfied standing a few inches above the earth. I think serenity is not something you just find in the world like a plum tree holding up its white petals. The violets along the river are opening their blue faces like small dark lanterns. The green mosses, being so many, are as good as brawny. How important it is to walk along, not in haste, but slowly, looking at everything and calling out, yes, no. The swan, for all his pomp, his robes of glass and petals, wants only to be allowed to live on the nameless pond. The catbrier is without fault. The water thrushes down among the sloppy rocks are going crazy with happiness. Imagination is better than a sharp instrument. To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work. I love that last line. To pay attention, this is our, excuse me, endless and proper work. All around us, we are surrounded by miracles. The sun shining down upon us, the air we breathe, even the ground under our feet. All the world is full of life. What a miracle. No one can explain it. Life is everywhere on the planet, from clams to flowers to elephants to insects to robins. Everywhere life is burgeoned on Earth, on this great water planet, circling the sun. How amazing. Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is stretched out before us, but people see it not." That's quite a mouthful. The kingdom of God is stretched out before us, but people see it not. Everywhere we look, there is mystery and wonder. In the wings of a butterfly, for example. The butterfly wings are made of a kind of sugar called chitin. So is the body, the outside of the body of the butterfly, made of this material called chitin. It's a kind of sugar that's put together again and again, and you can do amazing things with it. If you put a little calcium in it, you can have a clam, the shell of a clam, which is made of calcium and chitin. Or you can get the wing of a butterfly, which is made of chitin and something else. All the world has these wonderful inventions. Mushrooms, for example, are also made of this stuff called chitin. We can eat chitin. We have the ability to digest it. So you can eat mushrooms or you can eat insects. Not that you'd want to, but if you had to, you could. Any questions or comments? So we have our skin, which is made of something called keratin. And it's our hair. Our hair is made of keratin, and the nails on our hands are keratin, and that's another substance that the life created. Life is always creating things to enable it to exist. The proteins in our body are made of amino acids, which are little structures composed of carbon and nitrogen and hydrogen and a few other things. And the body actually makes these products. It makes them. It makes vitamins, for example. It's amazing how the body, not only we take in food, but we make much of the structure of our bodies. How did the body ever learn to do that? How does a blade of grass know how to make itself? It's amazing, totally amazing. Life is so complicated and so ingenious. Every moment we encounter life, we encounter incredible mystery. Any questions or comments? Can you name for me some ordinary thing which is really a mystery? Hmm? Can't hear you.
Rocks.
I have to turn up my sound. Yes, again?
Rocks.
Rocks, yes. Rocks. Why should there be rocks? Rocks are made of what? Minerals. Minerals. What are minerals? Minerals are compounds. I'm going to have to look this up to tell you exactly what minerals are. But we have about 4,000 different kinds of minerals. Minerals are mostly silicon, I believe. Silicon is an atom, one of the most abundant atoms, and it makes up about half of the Earth. And it has different varieties, so we can have different kinds of rocks. Silicon is one of the fundamental atoms. We have about 92 different kinds of atoms that make up the universe. And if not for those atoms, we wouldn't be sitting here. Those atoms make up the body. Christina is leaving. Are you coming back, dear? All right. The atoms in our body were made in the stars. How incredible is that? Nitrogen, nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, even things like copper and gold were made in stars. Amazing. And we are made of those atoms that were made in the stars. So we are connected to the whole universe. As a Buddhist monk once said, in us we find everything. In us we find the whole universe. We are connected to all things, the sun, the rain, the earth. We are part of the universe and have come from the universe. This mystery. Any questions or comments? Sorry about my phone. So this morning I went out on the porch here and the sun was shining. And it was a beautiful morning today. It rained last night. Did you see that rain? Wasn't that wonderful? The ground is wet outside and the sun is brilliantly shining. The air has been washed clean by the rain. And there are so many miracles right in that we have the rain, that we have the sun. The sun brings us light every day and warmth and makes possible this world. What a wonder. It's only about 100 years ago that we figured out how the sun works. And it's really intriguing, and we're still learning about how the sun works. But basically, it takes the little atoms, and as these atoms in the sun fly around each other, once in a while they hit each other. And usually they bounce off. But every now and then, and it might take 100,000 years, one atom hits an atom in such a way that one becomes a neutron. One of the atoms becomes a neutron, which means that it is a little different than it was before. It's a little bit heavier, and it doesn't have a charge. But it attaches itself to an atom that has a charge. And so these fly around, and they, in a couple of seconds, they meet with another atom that's joined with a neutron, and they combine, and when they do that, they let off some energy. And basically that's the energy that we get here on Earth. That beautiful sunlight that brings us warmth and illumines the world, makes all things seen, adds color. That's another interesting thing about the light. It contains color. Or the potential for color, right? What do I mean by that? Light comes into the room and is basically invisible, but we see things because of the way light strikes things and the kinds of atoms that things are made of determine the color. For example, the red chair that you're sitting on, that red is light that is being bounced back from the atoms in the chair that want to absorb every color in the light except red. The chair is absorbing green, it's absorbing blue, it's absorbing yellow, but not red. For some reason, the atoms in the chair don't like red. So they send it back, and that's why the chair is red. A green leaf is green because the leaf is absorbing all the other colors, yellow, blue, red, but it's sending back green. It doesn't want green. For some reason, we don't know. It doesn't want green. So we see the world as green when we look at the trees and plants. Quite amazing, right? Even the clothing we're wearing has atoms in it, and those atoms are responding to the light. They're interacting with the light. How amazing is that? It's not just like a mirror, but they're actually interacting with the light. The whole world is full of waves of energy. Everything is made of waves of energy. And so the whole world can be said to be like an orchestra, performing sounds, making sounds which are waves of energy that come to our ear and bring the light. Music is a vibration, and all the atoms and molecules in the world, the air around us, the light that comes in the room, everything is vibration. Everything is energy that somehow is put together in such a way as to make the material world. That's quite extraordinary, I think. And it's something we're just beginning to learn about. Scientists are just learning that the world is made of energy, really, that is somehow focused into the material things that we see around us and make us who we are. And it's mind-boggling, I think. How has energy become something solid? You know, how does that work? How did energy become something alive? The world is made of plants and animals and tiny cells, and everything is alive, which we can't even define what life is. Scientists have said, "Well, I know it when I see it." Right? We all know something is alive as opposed to a rock. But what is that quality that makes a mouse alive, or a butterfly alive, or a tree alive, and a rock not alive? But maybe a rock is alive. Who knows? Any questions? Comments? Let's read another poem. It's interesting to have poetry. Poetry not only talks about things, but it also brings to us a feeling about things, right? Poetry brings us something that is within us that is difficult to put into words ordinarily. Great literature has a quality of not only imparting information, but also feeling. So when we have a piece of literature that says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was void and without form, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved across the waters. And God said, what? Let there be. You say light? So that is not only a statement, a religious statement, it's also a poetic statement. Hmm? How beautiful are those words? And the Spirit of God moved across the waters, and darkness was on the face of the deep. How wonderful of those words, which have spanned thousands of years. And so the poet, whoever wrote that was a poet. Let's see. Let's find. Here's a poem called Poem. Poem. The spirit likes to dress up like this: 10 fingers, 10 toes, shoulders, and all the rest at night in the black branches, in the morning in the blue branches of the world. It could float, of course, but would rather plumb rough matter. It needs the metaphor of the body. Lime and appetite, the oceanic fluids. It needs the body's world, instinct and imagination, and the dark hug of time, sweetness and tangibility, to be understood, to be more than pure light that burns where no one is. So it enters us in the morning, shines from brute comfort like a stitch of lightning, and at night lights up the deep and wondrous drownings of the body like a star. Airy and shapeless thing, it needs the metaphor of the body. That's a beautiful phrase. The metaphor of the body, what does that word metaphor mean? And something that stands for something else. What is the body? Hmm? Is the body really spirit? Is life really spirit? That's what the mystics have said. That's what the writers of the Bible have said. Everything is spirit. Native Americans look upon the world as spirit. All the trees and rocks, all the waters, all the plants and animals are really spirit in the guise of a tree or a rock or a plant. or I should say disguise. Everything is a wonder of spirit. Here is a little, this is, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a trilobite. What is a trilobite? A strange little creature. There aren't any trilobites on the earth now. There are some relatives like horseshoe crabs. But at one time in the world, these creatures were everywhere, of different sizes, from very tiny to some that were feet in length. And they were one of the major life forms on the planet around 400 million years ago. And they all disappeared. We don't know why. Life is always changing. Excuse me. Life is always changing, always developing, always becoming. In a million years from now, will we be here? Will humans still be on the planet? What do you think?
Might not be.
Hmm?
Might not be here.
Might not be here. That's right. Maybe something else will be here. Change is really, what the world is about is change. Incredible as that is, and hard to accept sometimes. Change change is something that is operating in the world and has operated in the world from its very beginning, which is good for us right now because we're part of that change. Hmm? We have evolved from different forms of life. In the Bible, it says, on the first day, God made the heavens and the earth, and then proceeded, the earth brought forth plants and animals, and things came about in stages, right? Well, not all at once, but things came about in stages. And lastly, God makes a man and a woman. And we are one of the youngest of living things on the earth. We know now that we're only about 300,000 years on the earth, which sounds like a long time, but 300,000 years is a drop in the bucket when it comes to life. And insects, for example, have been here for hundreds of millions of years. Trees for 100 million years. Fish for um, maybe 300 million years, 400 million years. So other forms of life have been on the earth for much longer periods of time, and some have appeared and disappeared, like the trilobite I have here, which was once found everywhere, but now you can't find any of them. So it is possible that in a million years you won't be able to find any humans on the earth, but you might find some other creature that came out of the human, that became more. more human, perhaps. Perhaps um, we have yet to grow, yet to become. If you read the newspaper, you find a lot of awful things in it sometimes, right? And people say it's because human beings have not matured enough yet, have not understood how to live with each other. And maybe in 1,000,000 years, we will know how to live with each other. Or maybe in 10,000 years, or it could come next year, who knows, right? It would be a great thing, how to respect one another, right? How to share with each other, how to help each other. Who knows what life will be like in 1,000 years? Do you think it'll be better? Mm-hmm. I do too. I share that. I do too. I think it will be better. I think progress is possible, and we see progress in the world today. 100 years ago, or what was it, not quite 100 years ago, we had many of you'll remember the Second World War, right? The Second World War was horrendous, and today we don't have wars like that. We don't have the whole world fighting with each other. There are still some wars, but not on the scale that we had during the Second World War, where everybody seemed to be taking sides and everyone was engaged in this fight for what? Who knows? Um, so I think progress is possible. We just had a election, right? We elected Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, first black woman, first woman to be vice president, and a black woman. How about that? Pretty amazing, right? We had the first black president 4 years ago. Who could have believed that? Who could believe this country would ever have a black president? And it is possible and was possible. Amazing, right? Totally amazing. But that's the power of people. The power of people to change. The power of people to become something different, better. Hmm? In the human heart, there is the possibility of becoming better, the possibility of treating each other with equality, with kindness, with fairness. It is there in the heart. That's why poets are important. That's why religious people are important. Scientists are important. Because all these people point to something bigger than themselves. They point to some truth that is larger than ourselves. Any questions or comments? There's this article on this stuff called Chitin, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's spelled Chitin, Tin, and it's a sugar. And it is made into the bodies of insects, and the bodies of mushrooms, and the bodies of clams, and shellfish, and lobsters, and scallops, and all sorts of things are made of this particular sugar, and they're spun in such a way that it can combine with different things, such as calcium, which is a mineral that we find in the oceans, and then you get something like this, which is a clam made of this chitin and calcium, and it's so hard. The calcium and the chitin becomes harder than either of them were before. And that's pretty amazing how life has this ability to become more than it was before. So you have something like water, which is made of a gas hydrogen and a gas oxygen, but these two gases now are water, which is more than it was before. Why is that possible? I think that's one of the great wonders of this universe, that the structure can become something different, something more. So we have hydrogen and oxygen and carbon can become sugars. Add a little nitrogen and you can get something called an amino acid, which makes up our proteins, and those proteins make up the body, and somehow the body puts all those together in just the right way, and voila, we have us, or a tree, or an elephant, or a dog, or a cat. But the wonder of it is the body makes all these things. How is that possible? How does the body know how to put together all these different things in the right order, just the right way, every time to make who we are? In every cell of the body, we have maybe 1,000 or 5,000 different kinds of proteins. And they're like little building blocks which make up the cell. And each little building block has to be put together in just the right way. How does the body know how to do that? It's amazing. It's one of the great miracles of life, without which we would not be here at all. Questions? Comments? Much of the world is hidden to us. We only see the surface of things. A tree is more than a tree. A butterfly is more than a butterfly. And we are more, I think, than we think we are. Each living thing is a wonder and mystery and spiritual creation. Anyone ever live on a farm?
Yes, Nova did.
Hmm? Yes?
Yeah, I did. 28.
You did. And when you live on a farm, you come in contact with birth and growth and regeneration, right? You see animals and plants, and you're close to nature, and you can see the miracle of life. Animals being born, perhaps, right? Animals growing, plants coming up from the earth. How amazing is that,
Pretty amazing.
right? Every leaf is a wonder. Every leaf is connecting with the sun. Every leaf is drinking in the light from the sun and using that light to make its food. How did that ever come about? Scientists are still studying how that works, how plants are connected to the light in the sun and use that light for the energy to make food. And without that light and the ability of plants to channel that light to help create the food in the plant, the sugars and starches and whatever you have, there nothing would happen. And yet the plant is so organized as to be able to take that light and direct it to the right place at the right time and use that energy to make food. And that miracle is what supports the whole world. We cannot make our own food, right? We can grow plants, but we cannot um, create food within us like a plant can. So that means plants are very, very special. They can do something we cannot do. And without that, we wouldn't be sitting here. No animal can make its own food, right? And so the only living things on the earth that actually make their own food are the plants. And we're dependent on the plants so that we have something to eat. That's pretty amazing. All around us, there are wonders. I'm having a little coffee here. And as I mentioned last time, the coffee comes from a tree that is a flowering tree. And most of what we eat comes from flowering plants, like the, the toast on our plate this morning. If you had toast with cereal, those cereals, the wheat, whatever, the wheat comes from a flowering grass. And most of what we eat, most of what, and if you're eating if you're having bacon and eggs, the bacon comes from a pig, right? And the pig has to eat something, and what does it eat? It has to eat grain and corn or something, right? You are on a farm, you know what a pig eats, maybe, if you have pigs. And the chicken, if you're having an egg, the chicken had to eat something, and what did it eat? It could eat insects or it could eat grains. Um, and the insects that it ate had to eat grass or something like that, right? So everything is tied to everything else, and all things are the results of a evolution, a change, an evolution, a change over time. So that in the beginning there was simple life, maybe a few tiny cells, hmm,
Mhm.
a few tiny cells that learned to use the sun to make its food. And that's why the plants today can make their food from the sun. Questions or comments? I think I might end here today and hope that you will have a wonderful Christmas.
You too.
Thank you. Oh, we're going to have a special star, actually, not a star, but two planets that will come together. On the 21st, it'll be the best. December 21st, if you look in the south, after the sun goes down, you'll see Saturn and Jupiter, and they'll be so close that they will look like one star. And that is going to be interesting. And some say that when the time of Jesus, that happened too. And that was the great star that led the Magi to the birthplace of Jesus. Anyway, it's going to happen again this year, and we're going to see these the two planets, um, Jupiter and what did I say? Saturn come together, line up together. They're not going to be touching each other. They're going to be millions of miles apart, but to us, they will look like they are one planet, very bright. So you can look forward to that. Um, Also, in the news, I forgot to mention that China has brought back some rocks from the moon. How amazing is that? Yeah, yeah. They went to the moon and they dug up these rocks and came back to the Earth, and now we're going to look at those rocks and see what the moon is made out of. Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it is.
Hmm. All right, I'm going to leave you with that, and
Okay.
I wish you a wonderful holiday, and and thank you for being in class. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
And be well, stay safe.
Oh, Sunbury?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, ending a little bit early today. Um,
Okay.